You hear me?
JP, I can hear you. I'm here.
Yeah, what's up, man?
Welcome.
Um, Hold on, I'm just making sure that
Yeah,
everything on. Oh, my camera's not on. Okay. I
gotcha.
uh how's the light? Is the light? I mean,
I
I
can
always
see
try
you
and
fine. I wouldn't stress on any light if
all
it's
right.
if it's a like I could see you. I think picture's gonna be fine.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I ain't worried about it. I'm not as quite as prepared as I wanted to be today, just as far as technologically, like I had said I might record and all that.
Yeah.
I was cranking away, like being productive today, but I still move a little slow, still recovering from, psychological trauma.
Yeah, yeah. That's what this is all about. Just chilling and
Yeah.
having a just go with the flow conversation, friendly
Yeah.
conversation. I took
I,
me some time to kind of like practice or get comfortable with that. Even just making videos in my past, I kind of started in 2019, like trying to officially do anything on YouTube, and I was like just sweating beads, and I didn't know like if my everything had to be perfect, and I was trying to do a social media marketing
yeah.
video. And now since then I had to fail at many different things
Oh
and
yeah.
doing group calls and stuff that kind of gave me a little like I did so much stuff, including cringy stuff that I can finally kind of chill out a little bit and just not care.
Yeah, I mean, like I it really, like, I'm no stranger to this, and you would think it would be second nature, but after taking a long unintended hiatus and now having way more, it's like I told you. I mean, one of the reasons I stopped doing content was I just didn't feel like being in front of a camera, and like whether I was in a good mood, bad mood, whatever, it just didn't feel. But so I'm pushing myself now, and it's almost in a way like learning to ride a bike again, because there's a lot of differences, not only in the industry, the technology, the culture, and even myself and my uh motivations and reasons and that sort of thing.
I appreciate us being able to talk about that, and you certainly do. If anybody's a professional in anything we're using here, it's you. And so
uh,
yeah, like you know what you're doing, audio, video.
uh,
You got a lot of experience. We've talked before getting on the podcast today, and I love listening to your stories. I have fun with it. It's some
I
peace for
appreciate
me to
it.
talk onto you on the phone this week already a few times.
Yeah, thank you. I
So,
appreciate it. And
yeah.
and and the feeling's mutual, honestly. It's we've talked about, like, one of the things, as you get older, you change your social capital comes, waxes and wanes, and who's in the inner circle, I'd say probably gets smaller. Maybe sometimes expands and then gets smaller again. And having, met somebody like you, like I had talked to you once about, I have a long history on the internet and making friends on the internet,
Yeah.
and then social media kind of for a while made it difficult, but it's still something that happens, and I it, it's probably feels like it's more rare to me because I've been on the internet for so long, longer than most people, that I know personally. And so, like, at one time, since there was a lot less people on the internet, it was probably easier, more frequent to run into real people. You didn't have like things like bots and social media and stuff, so you were
Oh,
guaranteed to be
yeah.
interacting with real people. you know, and most likely when you were in a specialized chat room, like, you were with mostly like-minded people, as
Yeah.
opposed to social media where you got, what is Facebook was like up to like a third of the planet at one point.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, a third. Yeah, yeah.
Seriously.
Yep. Yep.
Seriously.
So I appreciate running into people like you and maintaining a relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes like I come across accounts like I'm not sure what to think, and I tend to try to just be kind of brave and connect with people right off the bat, no matter like what I see. And not with you, but sometimes I see sometimes that like some things to me are almost a little concerning. But I'm
Oh
also
yeah,
thinking, oh man,
some
there's a lot
things.
of dads out there that are angry at the world, and I understand that, and I'm gonna hang around a little bit, and I'm gonna say hi if the opportunity calls for it. Sometimes it's just a follow for a while.
Yeah, I'm gonna sound a little bit like a broken record too, not just with you, but people in our community who often refer to dads and fathers and men. And I get it. I'm a man, I'm a father, I'm a dad, so of course I'm going to relate more so to that, and have a lot of biases. But as this conversation progresses, when people understand what it is, what community it is we're talking about, what population,
Mm.
I have to recognize it isn't just dads, fathers, men, and it's not necessarily even women and moms and mothers who have experienced what we've experienced, but also the ones who support us.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of women involved that support what
Mm-hmm.
we're facing as dads, and it's important as easy as it could be looked over, especially with my content on my channel so far. It could be easily looked over to think that I'm just like after women or something, and
Oh yeah, no, I
not.
know you're not. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
no, it's
wasn't a
good to
judgment.
clarify. Yeah, it's good to clarify this alienation and missing your kids. It happens to women. And it happens in different ways. Sometimes fathers are behaving with the same, like this, like same, narcissist attitude and just kind of like malicious and evil intent and just attacking and taking a kid away. This is the bottom line is, especially first for the kids, missing your parent is a terrible thing. It's extremely difficult. Yeah, I think it's abusive to the kids psychologically, major, and it definitely to the parent too. So I could respect any parent going through it, especially child.
Yeah, yeah, and I didn't necessarily see this angle in the beginning, but having been so immersed in this population and having in my experience having progressed, unfortunately, but I guess in some ways it's fortunate that I have certain insights and perspectives, not only for myself but hopefully to advocate and help others. um I like we often, I guess I'm guilty of seeing it in a biased way where it's like the other parent is deliberately doing something, right? And I have to recognize also that sometimes it's not necessarily like, sure, they might be bitter and angry, and that may be the driving force. But I think that for some parents who alienate, it isn't a conscious decision, and they don't understand. Well, they probably do eventually, but at first they don't necessarily understand what how their behaviors and their words or the lack of what they're doing and saying also works that way. Could be working to alienate the kids in a way that's not even, they don't even realize it. And um I think also, like, kids who miss their parents, whether it is because of alienation or a parent had passed away or something of that nature, kids are resilient. Kids' brains kick into high gear very quickly because they're developing neural pathways, right? So as their life experiences unfold before them, they're making neural connections like in real time, probably more than real time. It's probably
Mhm.
measured in like nanoseconds,
Yeah.
and they they very often, you might look at them and say they are very well adjusted. Look, they're well behaved. They're okay. They're not sad. They're not depressed, because they become very good at masking these things. And I think even the children themselves may not even realize it. It takes a very time, often until they're grown ups and they go to therapy and they have life experiences and failed relationships and so on and so forth, where they finally realize, whoa, like there's something wrong with me, and this happened in my childhood.
Yeah, you probably relate even still. I mean, like today, every day, especially since I'm reflecting on these things and I'm having these conversations, I still learn things every day when I look back at my childhood again and think, wow, I didn't even realize like this was really happening to me
Mm,
many different ways, often for me
mm.
still.
Yeah, yeah, and a matter of fact, I'm a product of divorced parents, and
Same.
maybe a handful of years ago, I would have said to you, my parents hated each other's guts, but I didn't know that till I was well into adulthood, and for the first, like, decade, just about, like, it to me was like a very normal today, I guess today I call it a 50-50. Back then I wouldn't have called it that. It would just have been like I spent holidays with my dad, summer vacations with my dad, Boy Scout trips with my dad. You know, if sometimes if I was sick, my mom needed to go to work, I went with my dad. So it was like, to me, it was like all the divorced kids I knew whose both parents were involved had that sort of a relationship, two homes, two Christmases, two sets of grandparents. If there were step parents involved, you know what I mean? There's four sets of
Yeah,
grandparents,
I would
and,
agree with that. Yeah.
right. And I think that what I'm seeing today, I don't have statistics to back this up right now, but I think if anybody does, you do, and it's out there.
It's out there.
We might be seeing less of that normal quote unquote divorced lifestyle where the kids who are products of divorced parents probably don't have that back and forth sort of 50-50 experience. They tend to, there might be a form of alienation on some levels, again, maybe not intentional. And I brought that up. I kind of went sidetracked there. So my experience, I would not have known this or maybe even thought about it till very recently, but I was actually alienated from my mom from the age of 8 until about 16. That was a whole complicated story. I'm not going to get into it now because it's too much of a sidetrack. But I know that had an effect on me, and I knew that before experiencing what I'm dealing with as a father and seeing my children go through. Um, so yeah, it's made me really reflect on that, like aside from any other childhood things that I was either over or not,
Yeah.
by the age of 50. Yeah, anybody listening who's like 20, 30 years old, like, sorry, sometimes it takes a long time. Hate to break it to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
So so yeah, it's made me examine that much more closely and really understand and see also the dynamic now between me and either of my parents. Like now, I don't have a good relationship with my father, and I don't think it was necessarily. I know it wasn't necessarily because of that. I mean, I wasn't conscious of that till recently. Excuse me,
Mhm.
but that certainly may have been the sort of the catalyst, right? That may have been the and
Background
that,
to it,
yeah,
maybe.
and I
Yeah.
do have a close relationship with my mom, but not the way I'm sure I would have had those 8 years not occurred. I mean, I have very vivid memories as a child, as before the age of 8, being very close with my mom, very huggy, cuddly, very normal. My mom, I think I told you, is Hispanic. We're a very emotional, loving, affectionate culture, and I have those vivid memories of that. And any of my friends my age who grew up close with their moms like that still have that relationship with their moms. I don't. I am close with her. I love her to death. I have a relationship with her, not my father. But it's weird. It's not like that. It's not like some of my friends who seem to me, that's more normal. Like they still have affection. For me, it's weird. It's uncomfortable.
I see, like my wife is Hispanic and her family is pretty much like from Mexico, Nayarit area,
Mm-hmm.
her mother's and father's side, I think. And so I see, there's a lot of like inner family turmoil in her family too, but at the same time, I see a lot
Sure.
of that closeness, especially when it comes to grandma or nana, over there,
Mm-hmm.
abuela, and the
Mm-hmm.
connection that everybody has with her and how that kind of even comes to a head as the family. And of course, her husband, everybody calls him Tata, or all the kids do. And then my wife, she's carried on a lot of those positive things and has it with our kids. I can see a lot of that. And like the American white culture, it's all over the place. There's so many good families out there I've seen that are so
Mm-hmm.
close from beginning to end of life, like the coolest, tightest families. And then there's others where, man, it's like a mess from day one. I was pretty close with my mom, very young, and I kind of learned observing her and other smaller kids, like with her personality, she actually tends to be closer with very small children. And then as they get older, she kind of like turns into something else. So I'm not close with my mom.
Mm,
In fact, I haven't spoken to her in over maybe like a year or something at this point.
right.
But just to relate to some of what you said.
Well, it's funny. It's funny because I think I have three different perspectives from childhood. I told you about my mom. My mom's family Hispanic. Now they were immigrants, so the bulk of our family wasn't here. But I did have my grandmother, two uncles, and a lot of cousins. So it's a fairly decent sized family.
Yeah.
My dad remarried a woman, an American woman of Irish and Polish descent from the Philadelphia area. And my dad was born and raised in Brooklyn. And even though he had a relationship with his mother, he didn't know his father. They were poor. He grew up on the streets. He went from being a beatnik to a hippie to then a blue collar worker. Um, so I've seen like sort of the kind of well, and I'll add this. I told you I was raised very much immersed in Black culture because of my roots in hip hop and the neighborhoods I grew up in. So I feel like I kind of have four perspectives of four different cultures there. And so with my dad's side of the family, yes, there was a grandma. She died when I was young. That was pretty much it. And there wasn't really a lot of affection and closeness there, even with my half sister. Stepmom grew up with a big family. There were certainly some divorces. There was certainly some, her grandpa on that side of the family was a grump, but very large and very connected family still to this day. And so I feel like I have four interesting perspectives when it comes to that family dynamic.
Yeah, seeing like with split families, you'd start to even in some cases they do come cl very close. In other cases, you kind of just observe. There's a step family there. I had like one step family for a few years from like 12 to 16. And I knew all of them, but they never became like my family. And then my mother actually divorced, and they're all gone now, and she's remarried, and I don't have any step family or their new husband at all. And but yeah, you get all these
Yeah.
perspectives of family,
Yeah.
and you
Well,
see.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just real quick, I was gonna say you see that like how divorce happens. It's been happening since old ages, thousands of years,
Oh,
and
since the
of
dawn of
course,
time, sure.
yeah, it's a common thing. But then but it's a learning experience for anybody listening to this. If you haven't ever observed before and you happen to be just listening to this interview, maybe give a little thought. Don't pry into everybody's private information, but just give a little thought to, oh, so and so's going through this. I wonder how that is. Maybe I should be a little bit compassionate to some of that on both sides or something.
I wonder if it's safe to assume that, the bulk, and I'm saying, 90 plus something percent of at least the Western world has an idea what it's like to have some sort of a blended family. I feel like, in America, we know their divorce rate is well over 50% now, right? Uh, that's pretty high. It's pretty significant. And I think it's climbing.
Yeah, probably way up there. Yeah.
And mind you, that's documented marriages. There are plenty of people who don't get legally married and have families.
Yeah, I was not
Yeah,
married to my oldest child's mother, who I went through all the family court and alienation stuff with. Yeah, never
yeah,
married.
yeah. Well, yeah, and even just not even circling back to the alienation thing, but just in general, people who weren't legally married but still have the same experiences of the breakups and
Mhm.
children and step, families and blended families and all that.
Hispanic culture, like it typically, and maybe even seeing like growing up around some of the black communities, like some of these communities tend to not want to call police for anything, let alone then step into a family court is another thing probably avoided. But police for sure, as I've seen, is like they don't want to involve them at all for many different reasons.
Yeah. You know what? You and I have spoken off camera, and my story is a little bit unique. At what brings me, to you in particular. But so in my own experience as a father, I have had no involvement. Well, I shouldn't say no involvement with police in that respect of like like false allegations or domestic violence or custody interference and that sort of thing where people might get the police involved. Like I haven't had those experiences.
Yeah.
My only experience in that respect is when I was a kid. My dad and mom did eventually fight for custody in court, and there was. I, I, I'm gonna laugh. It probably was traumatic at the time, but I was old enough to come to court. I had a counselor, and all that, and I didn't. I don't think I ever went in the courtroom. I don't remember being part of any hearings. I would have to wait in another room, play, and whatever. I did get to meet the judge once. I remember, but
Mm.
the one crazy memory I have was my mom brought like her whole family one day. And it was like an hour. She lived in North Jersey. My dad lived in South Jersey. It was like an hour and a half drive. She brought like my uncles and cousins and I don't know, remember it was just like a posse.
Mm.
And she took a walk with me to the parking lot. This is how I remember it. This is what I was said, so I don't know exactly how true all this is, except what I saw and what I experienced. But apparently my dad kind of figured out she might be trying to sneak away with me, and he ran out there to confront her, and they jumped him. and and it was somebody on my stepmom's side of the family, maybe my step grandma, who like kind of grabbed me and like got me away to safety, and like the bailiffs and police came and broke up the fight. Um,
Man, that's
but that's the only experience I had in that respect. I have had some run-ins with the police. We'll talk about that later. But
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's for a child, and like your position being the most important position in that scenario is so sad.
oh,
It's
I was right.
sad,
I'll never forget it. Like it was yesterday. I was 8 years old, and I
burned in
was
your
right smack in the
memory.
middle of it. Like
You're
my
right,
like
traumatic experience.
yeah, and like my step grandma, I'm pretty sure that's who it was. Like she had to like reach in through people that were fighting and like grab me.
Because you're what they're fighting over, right? Yeah, I look
Yeah,
back even definitely there's police involved with like both of my parents in several different situations, and then my actual case as a father tons of times, and actually the majority,
yeah,
like 90%, 90 plus 95 plus percent, I was always calling, even though I didn't realize it doesn't actually help that much to ask
yeah,
for help, but
yeah.
I was the one usually calling. My parents one time, I must have been 3 or 4, and I think we were like on the side of the freeway, and they were out of the car, and I don't remember the words, but they were probably saying, I'm taking him, I'm taking him. I was the only child. And I remember they both had one arm, and I was like lifted up off the ground holding me.
Wow, that's
I still
traumatic.
remember that. I don't think I've ever talked to my own mother about that. My father's passed away about 20 years ago, and but yeah,
Oof.
those like you said, you're so resilient as a kid. You like get through it. Unfortunately, my parents were not the type to talk it through and say, "Hey, this was wrong. This was really
No,
wrong. We
no, I don't think.
apologize." I got no explanation ever.
Yeah, no, I don't think most parents. I highly doubt that we'll find 100 people on the earth who ever said my parents had a reasonable, mature discussion with me about it.
Yeah. But I do, as a parent myself, me and my wife, like we make it a point, like if there's any, and there's no huge mistakes like that ever in our relationship, in our marriage, our family, but even if something
Good,
small, we'll totally go back and say, hey, I made a mistake here, saying it like this, or getting you in trouble when you were actually shouldn't have been in trouble. So that's a cool thing about the transition now is I make that a point in my own house for sure, but we certainly never had any drama like that.
it's interesting to me getting to know you and your story because I'm 51. I'm done having kids. At least I don't know. I know I have a couple of crazy friends my age and even older who have young kids, but
Mhm. Can happen. Yeah, it
I
happens, huh? Could happen.
well, I say that because like I don't know if I'll ever know what it's like now to sort of do it again with
Yeah.
knowing what I know and be very deliberate in like not making mistakes or at least like quickly
Yeah.
doing what they call repair.
Hmm.
Yeah,
But
I
you
mean I mean
probably,
I
I bet you
will.
would, if you did, what, it's just hypothetically, I bet like because it's like, I think it's actually natural for a lot of conscious men like yourself, fathers that,
Mm,
recognize where things went wrong from others or even for yourself to be able to like,
yeah.
I think it's, totally
Well,
would, but
well, I
aside
do.
from,
I am conscious to practice that just in my relationships now, just like if I'm
Mhm.
dating or there's one I have one love interest kind of, and I am it's I think that not only myself but any of the women I've talked to recently definitely want to take it slow because tend to talk to women my age and who've been through shit, So we're kind of
Yeah,
on the same page.
yeah,
So that is interesting. In some ways, it's a breath of fresh air. In some ways, I'm impatient.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I mean, and I'm coming out. So in this interview, like, so anybody that doesn't know either one of us, I'm about to be 37 in like less than a month, I think, and JP's 51, and that makes total sense, because it's just, I think it's just so natural, kind of our design to be in partnership. That's not that pretty in reality, and obviously, and that's what kind of why we're here about how messy it could be. But I think part of the design is, whether it happens or not, it's kind of good to recognize like there's beautiful things in having being able to be kind of partners in life a little bit, but it doesn't always work out like that. And it doesn't mean that it's the end of the world if it's not right
No.
now or that there's no possible ability in the future. Some guys, I'm going to be coming on here. I think hopefully another father I'm talking to, he's like almost to his 70s and lots of perspective there. And he's
Oh, you told me, yeah.
there's going to be a lot more coming, and it's cool. We're going to learn so many different things. But yeah, I mean, I understand that
Yeah.
it's both ways. But you got a lot of wisdom from being through so many things, and there's so much value in that.
Well, and I don't think that it ever stops. I've already this is something I definitely learned probably decades ago that one thing, you never stop learning, right? You never really stop growing until the day you cease to breathe. I think if you I don't know if you learn something new every day, that might be an exaggeration, but it might be pretty close to it.
Yeah, yeah,
But particularly with relationships, especially in the modern world where we kind of have to go out of our way to find and develop and build and maintain relationships because we no longer live in like these large, the nuclear family, then the extended family, then the neighborhood and the community and the villages. It's very rare. People are spread out, people are compartmentalized quite literally, and people don't have time to just be like normally socialized and have these third places. And um it's I lost my train of thought there.
well, you're talking about
Oh,
the differences in people staying in touch with each other because it's not just a small village so much anymore. We're talking
well,
about
right. So that's what I'm saying. So this whole like idea of relationships, right? This concept of relationships, like in a way, it isn't very different today for a lot of people than it was. Perhaps there's people listening from certain European and Eastern countries in South America and the Caribbean where they're like, no, like we still live in villages. Yeah, I know, I've been there. Like, I'm talking primarily about the Western world, more specifically the one I experience, and it's because I grew up. I'm a Gen X kid, like through and through, and I'm at the cusp of kind of the old world meets the new world, So I did get that experience early in life, but transitioned quickly into this new way of life where I don't, I don't know where the villages are. It's like they've disappeared.
truly, truly. And it's odd because it's almost like I maybe you could correct me, but I feel like we're almost rebuilding a little bit of it using, ironically, the internet by making little groups.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier, where I have a very long history on the internet, right? Where I think I said to you the other day about there was a time where the computer was sort of that thing in the corner on a desk somewhere that either a household shared or a few friends shared, or
I
you had it as a
experienced a little bit of
tool
that.
that you went and used for a period of time, in the evening or whatever, and it wasn't like all day everything was on a screen. And so I think I mentioned earlier, like there were less people on the internet. Groups were more like vetted and curated, not even like deliberately. You know what I mean? Just by virtue of like you were looking for your people. You know,
And you had to look,
like
you really had to look in like those old
yeah.
chat rooms and stuff.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, literally, like I have a friend to this day. Him and I actually lost touch for about a decade, and then reconnected on Facebook. And we were talking about, man, remember when we met on AOL in like 97 or 98? Like,
Yeah.
we were in a hip hop chat room. It was probably like the hip hop chat room, like
Yeah.
worldwide. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we totally had a computer just like in the corner, and there wasn't one, and you're 51, I'm 37, so in the 90s, like I'm still a pretty small kid. I didn't go into junior high until I think like around the year 2000, 2001.
Mm,
And we had the compact Windows like 98, I think, and we only kind of advanced towards getting a computer because my mother worked with the computers in a law firm for years. And so she was a little bit savvy with it. And so we got
hmm.
one, and I played the little snake, the green background snake on there, or the two gorillas that threw a banana across New York, and they had smashed the building, the little exploding bananas. And like that
Yeah,
was it.
yeah,
You play
yeah.
a little bit and walk away from it. And then pretty soon, I had a little, like my mom brought a little cell phone home from work because it was part of work. And it was like, ooh, look at that thing. It's not the one on, on the wall.
Oh God. Yeah,
And
you
yeah,
reminded me. I know this is I'm gonna tangent a little bit, but my
all
first cell
right.
phone was a sales call I got early in the morning from AT&T, and I had a decent job, and I fell for it, and I wound up owing them like $2,000.
Oh,
I
because of
had a
like a phone
girlfriend.
call, right?
Yeah,
Or
well, I had a girlfriend at the time, and I had a decent job, so I'm like, I got money, and I was like, how baller with a cell phone, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I
But they
didn't
used to
realize how
charge
bad.
for like by the minute
Whew,
and stuff, right?
I literally owed them like 2 grand. It's so
That's an
terrible.
accomplishment
It
back
had an
then.
antenna.
Yeah, yeah. So those things like snuck in, and you really are like, older world meets the new world where, and on top of that, you weren't just like having a computer there, but you got active with it. You're smart and used it, started streaming, and you got a background in music. So you were like really one of the first, everyday streamers before there was really many platforms to actually stream. There's
Yeah,
other things we talked
yeah,
about before, but
yeah. I mean, my first time really doing anything like live streaming was, I want to say, in 1998 or 99. It was Pseudo Studios in Manhattan. If anybody traveled or lived in New York City in the 90s, on the corner of Broadway and Houston, where the subway is, train tracks. I live next to train tracks now. Where the subway is, there used to be a big DKNY clothing company on the side of a building there. It was a 5-story building. And in the early 90s, they would throw raves on the 5th floor of that building. It was a big giant loft, probably terribly dangerous, but we threw raves there for
yeah.
years. And then it turned into this multi-million-dollar live streaming studio in late 98. That was my first exposure to going live on the internet.
That's cool to listen to. I mean, I got to listen a little bit extra, and that's pretty cool. And it's a important part about being able to talk with other fathers and stuff. And I'm learning, as I've learned from you, and just with our conversations as this platform develops, I'm starting like new benefits are coming to me that I didn't even think would happen. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
understand. And I could talk to any stranger about, we could shoot the shit about anything at a bus stop with somebody or whatever. I don't go to a bus stop, but whatever it is. But when I know that me and another man have experienced a lot of the same struggles in life and pain, that makes the conversation not even about our struggles, but about whatever else we're talking about that much nicer. And
You, you know,
that's a new benefit I realize as I'm talking to you, and now I can kind of like form that into other benefits for so many other people, the way that I've learned this.
that makes me think of the fact that, like, people like you and I, not just alienated fathers, right? Any population who kind of comes together because of some hardship, right? Some trauma, some that sort of, I guess, that trauma bond, if you want to call it that, and we form these communities and movements and organizations and outreach uh, endeavors and whatnot. Excuse me.
Mm.
Um, I think that there's a lot of criticisms, and rightfully so, where we often make the mistake of taking this trauma on as an identity, right?
Hmm.
And that makes me think of, for instance, like David Goggins or Jason Lamar we talked about the other day, where they kind of like have figured out like, okay, yeah, you had this horrible experience in life, get over it. You know,
Yeah.
like that's not who you are.
Yeah.
You know, remember who you are. And like it makes me realize that like, yeah, we may have come together because of some horrible experience, but together we can remember that's not who we are, that's not what we are. We have other things to bring to the conversation, and it's sort of that makes me sort of think about how they say for people like you and I, alienated parents, right? One of the best things a lot of professionals advise that we can do is like not to abandon but detach from the children when you're in a position where there's not much you can do right now, right? You're
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
powerless and you're cut off, and move forward with your life, right? Because one of the best things they say, one of the best things you can do is later on in life is you want your kids to see that you succeeded in some way. You know you didn't let whatever happened like destroy you as a person. Um, so I think that when we come together because of some sort of a shared trauma or experience or whatever you want to call it, we then bring the other things we have to the conversation and realize that together we can do that moving forward, that
Yeah, we got a life,
detachment, that
and this
building.
is who I was before. This is who I still am. But like you said, and we got started, it's like, man, I don't feel like even being in front of a camera, or you're very skilled in building a studio and starting you just regular live streaming and making content, but it could really just kill your spirit, especially the more and more you feel like alone, and maybe you lost another relationship, and people get busy. It's not that bridges are burned, but
Right.
then we meet,
Right.
and it's like, hey, and it's cool because it's pretty natural. You gave a nudge to me in many ways. I gave one back to you, and like I think we both felt better just in the past couple of days. It's so cool to be able to. Oh, what? I'm actually doing a little bit more today. I really appreciate that conversation. You've already had
Yeah.
effect on my platform. I just started getting more active on Facebook just because you told me like, hey, it doesn't seem like the place that's really moving that much, but it is. Just connect that little the meta setup, and keep the post rolling. And I already saw an unexpected. I don't know how long I would have waited, and that's just a small
Yeah.
thing. It's not really so much of like who I am, but that was a benefit. It reminds me. You could keep making your content and saying you can't live without music. It's just part of you. And I'm so interested in books, and I'm trying to tell myself lately, like, okay, even recently, I would sit down. Sometimes I'd read an entire book in like 24 hours or something
Mm.
because I liked it. And I'm like, oh, I want to read this one, and this connects to the next one. That's something I've really picked. I do like to work out, but reading has been something like one of my biggest interests, and I'm like, okay, don't leave it behind just doing the American Fathers thing. Keep doing what you want to do for yourself.
Yeah, I love to read, and I'm a writer, and and now at the age of 51, like I've been featured in one book. I'm about to be featured in another book being published by a New York Times bestseller. And like I don't want to say I never imagined like myself sort of in that lane, because I've wanted to be a writer since I was a little kid. I just never, I don't know, it's just it's interesting to me, like, because to me, I don't know, to me that says it it feels like, even though it's not my book, right? It's just something I'm being featured in. It feels like a tremendous like move towards success in some aspect of my career, right? My career isn't just necessarily music; it's in the creative endeavors, entrepreneurial,
Hmm.
creative arts. And I did publish one issue of a magazine that I wrote almost entirely by myself with the help of a couple of friends. And um, I did that in 2021. I haven't been able to, chip away much at the next issue since then. But like you said, like come, running into people like you, I'm more and more each day. Like I'm getting motivated. Being inspired, and I'm realizing that like not that I didn't necessarily know this, but like you get in your own way, right?
Yeah.
And as a and all the days that I've sat here, like, listen, I've had plenty of good excuses and plenty of good reasons.
Yeah.
Enough is enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, truly. And I got all of everybody's got something that even if they are moving forward successfully, it's always like the melting ice cream. You got to get some of this out, go back over here, let me fix some of this. And before you know it, other pieces of you might be a decade behind you, And if it's important, don't forget about it. And watch out for relationships that could come into your life that help remind you of that. And I'm so grateful
Yeah, yeah,
to
and
talk to you recently, and now I'm seeing that, and now I can pick your conversation in particular has showed me already with I talk to new guys every day now that hey, there's benefits for everybody here, be able to join in a conversation, not just about the struggle, but maybe ask them who else are they like, what else do they like to do, and all of a sudden this new spirit, this joy that comes back into the conversation and into them and then into me. It's just a reciprocal thing. Becomes super. It's a super cool experience, and you're like a new key to that. Just talking to you, because I talked to you several times, and for I think like an hour or two, and I've talked to other guys for about the same time, but it's happening more and more often. And the talks that we just had this week had a big impact on me.
good, good. I mean, like I said, the feeling is mutual, and it's also, you know, I feel like I've also been more purposeful now on social media. Like, pre pandemic, like you said, like I've have a long history of like being a content creator, a podcaster, live streamer. We used to call it internet radio. So there was, utilizing the internet was a very purposeful thing, and then I kind of, yeah, I think like everybody else, I lost sight of it somewhat when social media kind of took over, and people kind of forgot that there was an internet that existed. It was just
Yeah,
social media, right?
before
Uh,
MySpace and Facebook got here.
yeah, yeah. But now I find myself in the last like week or so, like back to being purposeful, back to manipulating those algorithms, back to like I've now discovered other people in our community, which has also helped my algorithm discover like more purposeful stuff. Like a few years ago, I got the idea that as I get older, one of the things I want to do, I want to volunteer at hospice. I want to become a lot more comfortable with death. It's something that I've only ever experienced either like kind of like the average American, where it's like this mysterious, scary thing, or like growing up on the streets, like that kind of ugly side of it. Never the like age old traditional like comfortable like we have no choice but to do it and it should be as peaceful and wonderful as as possible. Like so I found a creator, someone on Facebook who wrote a best-selling book about, she's a death doula and an oncology nurse. I forget her name, but she's giving these free webinars and teaching people about death and caring for dying loved ones and whatnot. And so I'm now, one of my notes now is to find, figure out how to go volunteer at hospice sometime soon.
I mean, I've got some experience that you bring to mind that I could share we haven't talked about, that, with what we do and deal with in fatherhood. You could even have like a young, healthy, like myself, like 22 years old, stepping into family court. It's a shock. And then you feel completely alone, and and you're younger, you have all this, like, you're so positive about so many things. You don't even realize sometimes when bad stuff's happened to you, but you also get hit with like, I'm super alone. And then in hospice care, there are a lot of older folks out there who have, and maybe this isn't just your only motivation, but there's a lot of older folks out there who have nobody, and they haven't talked to anybody in years, and their mind
Mm-hmm.
maybe even be slipping into a little bit of dementia and things,
Mm-hmm.
and they really got nobody. There was a woman I did Uber driving in San Diego just a couple of years ago, and I'm always so nice and ready to talk to people, help out a little bit. I was taking her to dialysis, and she had said, my husband passed away. If he knew where I was living right now, he would flip, because she got put into like a high rise downtown San Diego in this tiny little box room, hardly even a little bucket thing for a kitchen. And there was, so
Wow.
sad, there was cockroaches running all over the thing. And
Oh man.
it was so sad. And I actually met up with her a few times after that, a couple of little rides to dialysis and talked to her about her life. Think she didn't, nobody was there. You know, there's men and women that are older like that that are, and she wasn't on hospice, but facing dialysis, she was pretty old, and she's like living in this little box. It's so lonely, you know. So having a friend. Now here's the other thing is, when before me and my first kid's mother split up, I was about 21 years old, and I worked for a mortuary, and I was like a bit like bodybuilder back then, and so I met people for my first day. I'm like setting up flowers, you know, for a viewing, you know, before an actual funeral and burial and stuff. You have like a little viewing sometimes, or you come in and there's nothing that formal except you see, you know, your loved one there. If it's an open casket, and kind of visit and leave, people can go in and out. So, but real quick, I realized the family's names were all over the list, and I cared enough to say, hey, oh, this is this person's husband, son, daughter, granddaughter, or this is their mother or something. So I knew their names when they walked in, and then they asked me to, you have to be certified to be a director, but if they put the director's name on the paperwork, I would still actually, I was put in the position of doing the directing really quick for the whole funeral, and I got to speak in front of a bunch of people.
Wow.
And then also, since I was like a little young bodybuilder, they would send me out on call all the time to pick up. We called them a case, but it's a deceased person from either a hospital in their morgue, which is like a cooler, a big refrigerator, or
Yeah.
at home when hospice, because it's expected. You know, they're basically they're on their way to leave this life, and they're being cared for as best they can on the way out. And I met a little bit of family that was there, a family that hadn't been there after the person passed, and you see some of the situations that people lived in hospice before the end. Sometimes good, sometimes really sad.
Yeah, I
I was
mean,
around them for a while.
one of my very best friends, what died a couple of years ago. He was on dialysis, and he was down in Florida trying to get, the best healthcare he could there, and he had to leave his wife and kids up here and go down there, and you know, I guess he didn't expect to die so soon. He was planning on coming back,
Yeah.
but he wound up being alone in a little apartment in, like, like a state funded housing. And I visited him a couple times, and it was sad to know that, like, his last days weren't around at least his family, at least a couple of us close friends. I would have been happy to be there or have him here. And it since having experienced the loss of my living children, um I've really been, like, really just face to face with grief and loss and mourning in a way that's very unique to people, right? Like there are groups of parents, alienated parents. I've seen studies and I've seen groups and people talking with parents who actually lost children to death. Their children have died, and a lot of those parents have even said, like, we're pretty sure what you're experiencing is worse because your
They're
brain
still alive.
does right your brain can't reconcile that. There's no form of real true closure. It's there's always that looming hope, that longing. So there's a grief, there's a mourning, but it's, real mourning maybe doesn't necessarily end, but it kind of tapers, and there's an acceptance, right? And when it comes to someone living, you have to force yourself there.
Yeah, it's so odd. And I heard that too, that it could be worse because not only are we
They
missing,
say.
yeah, they say, and it's not only are we missing someone, you're mourning someone who's still alive, but then you're watching, depending on ages, and it can happen at a range of ages. And you and I have you have two daughters. I have my oldest that I'm missing, where they're about the same age, and I can't speak for you, but for myself, it's like I'm watching over time. Not only have I missed my little child that's so close to me, but she's like being turned against me too. So
Mm,
that's another experience. I'm mourning somebody,
hmm.
missing somebody, and then they're changing. You know, they're changing
Yeah.
is something it hurts
Well,
so much to see. You know.
yeah. I mean, I have seen memes and posts and have even shared a meme about the idea that like if you're an alienated parent, if and when you reconnect with your child or children, you got to realize long before that happens, they're not going to be the same whatever child it was you left behind. Like whatever, if it was a little sweet, innocent little toddler or teenager or whatever, they're not that person. And you're going to have to just something you're going to have to deal with
Got to work with it.
all on your own.
Work with it, do what you can. And some of the, you know, for anybody that, and I know I'm not really there, and JP I don't think is really there, but for anybody, as far as I'm learning, and I'm saying this without direct experience, but I do have a plan, is that when I see, you know, if I see her again, when I see her again, if I see her again, is to kind of let them lead a little bit, and just instead of
Yes.
pointing out, especially, oh, here's 14,000 documents of I've fought for you. Can't slap that on the table and prove it. Let them
No.
ask. You know, just
Yes.
if you're
Yes.
eating a sandwich together, enjoy the sandwich and
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
birds
Yeah.
flying by, but don't bring up any of that stuff in the past. Let
Yeah.
them lead the way.
Yeah,
Read
no,
the
that's
poem.
100%. Like, I'm gonna back you up on that, even though I haven't necessarily experienced that a little bit. There was a little bit of reconnection with my youngest daughter for a short time. And that is what all experts advise. That is what all other parents who've experienced it say is typically the best thing is let the child lead, only answer questions age appropriately. Don't be the one to bring it up. You
Even if
know,
they're adults, right? Even if they're in
right,
their
right, right,
20s
right,
and
right.
stuff, like, well, yeah.
It, I've heard some logical arguments against it,
Mhm.
and you and I had discussed like maybe in a more just and perfect world, like the one argument I think makes the most sense is, for example, if you have your children ever taken by CPS or even the alienating parent, let's just say,
Yeah.
is another grown up who had no regard for what it does to the child, right? It's very it's I'm gonna
No
whether it's like
empathy. Yeah.
CPS, for example, they'll come and rip the child out of your hands physically, right? If they think
Yeah.
they want, if they want to or need to, right? Whether they should or shouldn't. Um, they ask questions later. So why is it wrong then for me, the alienated parent, to be like, f this? Like it might not be wrong, but from what we're seeing, it's not the best approach. At least not in this world.
What do you mean when you say, when you're saying like F this, like it's
Why can't we have the same approach where we just like slap those documents on the table and see, look, damn it,
oh
I
yeah.
fought for you. Like,
Yeah, and
you know what I
it's
mean? Like,
totally
it wouldn't be
wanted.
wrong,
Yeah.
but it's it's doesn't seem to be the most effective way.
Yeah, because who knows that, like, everything exact we have an idea of what they've been through, or the false information they've been fed, and years of like abuse in that way. But as far as I can see, and there's a sweet girl, Maddie, that does the anti-alienation
Mm-hmm.
project, where
Mm-hmm.
that's where I got a lot of good perspective. And
Yep.
I don't agree with everything she says, but I think it's very helpful when we get, she missed her father from 10 years old up until 29, I think. So like
Yeah, 20 years.
years.
She was alienated for 20 years. I love Maddie. I'd love to meet her. I'd love to have a conversation with her. I'd love to attend one of her talks. And what the one thing I absolutely love about her, and I've seen other alienated children doing this now, is how she goes to like college campuses. She'll go somewhere in public and she'll have a table and she'll wear a t-shirt and she'll hand out pamphlets and she'll approach people, her age or younger, and say, have you ever heard of parental alienation? And I've watched these videos where, in a 5 or 10 minute conversation, this person she just met, who's like telling her that, I haven't seen my dad or I haven't seen my mom in 15 years or whatever, or they suddenly come to the realization in real time, like, oh my God, I was lied to. And I don't know if I mentioned this to you. I had a conversation recently. I've been seeing TikToks now with teenagers. There was one teenage boy in particular who's going around TikTok live and talking to other teenagers and having these conversations, and they're starting
Whoa.
to realize that they're being lied to and they're being alienated. And it's
Yeah.
wild seeing this in real time.
Yeah, and then Maddie's like on the outside, where she's like, okay, there's like a ethical line, or even legal, where she can't quite dig into minor, like a space where minors are, or directly talk to them. But she's something like she'd like to get into even high schools and say that, but there's some whatever barriers, red tape kind of
There's
thing.
nothing illegal. I wouldn't say there's anything immoral. It's just like with institutions, they kind of come up with their own ideas and interpretations of what's right and wrong, and they have their own kind of bylaws and things like
Yeah,
that.
so
So yeah,
she's
it's
like
difficult. Yeah,
up front, adult children of parental alienation, but she's also trying
yeah.
to figure out, okay, I'm sure there's windows, she's going to figure it out, how to get into talking to the younger crowd because they're still protected by whatever guardian they have and whatever.
Hey, I'll put this idea out there for anybody, whether I'm going to do it or somebody steal it from me. How about a children's book or a series of children's books?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
My, one of my closest friends, Sam Rizzo, may he rest in peace, was he'd been in and out of prison on and off of heroin, and before he died back in 2021, he was a very successful business person. He'd been sober for years, and he became like a poster boy for recovery. He was very well known in those circles. He traveled the country speaking at meetings, and he published a children's book. It's on Amazon. It's called When My Dad Fell Through the Moon, and it was for his godson whose parents were addicted. He had to adopt his godson when he was very little. I actually met the kid when he was 11, living in his dad's trap house in Baltimore, and it was pretty bad. And he wrote this book for children of addicted parents to like help them understand and cope and find help.
you're
And
following up on that.
yeah, it's when Sam Rizzo, Risso. It's on Amazon, and that is, I find that's a very effective way to reach children. There are a lot of creators out there on the internet who, in whatever lane, industry, avenue they're in, have reached children by putting out books.
Mhm.
So, I mean,
Right.
I haven't researched to see, the idea just came to me now, if there exists children's books
Brilliant.
about alienation, and if not,
Yeah.
there should be.
Yeah, we'll have to continue that thread of thought that it is. I think it's brilliant. You just, thought about that. And I
Well,
think we'll
sometimes
have
you keep
to,
ideas to yourself if you want to, make do it and make the money. But honestly, I think that's something that if somebody can beat me to it, do it.
well, whatever, either way, I think it's brilliant. I've never heard of it. Sometimes these things you think like, how come no one's thought of that? Or maybe there is something out there. I don't know,
There may be,
but
there
I
may be.
think it's great. I doubt it. I haven't heard it.
Yeah,
Uh,
if Maddie's listening,
I know there's one woman
hit me
that's
up. I'd love
writing.
to collaborate.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think we need to definitely follow up on some type of like little project or something to say, hey, let's push this idea a little bit further. Where
Or how
is
about
there
the whole
any out
community?
there?
How about the Advocate and Tough and all these? Let's get together. Let's put our resources together. Imagine how cheap it'll be and how quick we could do it if we all put our resources together.
Yeah, and another great idea. Yeah, I'm gonna take a little note here.
People
Yeah,
complain.
brilliant.
I have, not to get too much off the topic, but like,
Yeah.
I do some small business consulting, and I've run a lot of businesses. Most of my adult life is what I've either been managing or owning businesses or establishing businesses, and people often complain who have great ideas, right? They want to start a business. They're passionate about something. They know it'll be successful, but they don't have the capital. They don't have the credit. They're not sure how to. I constantly, I'm always having to remind people, like, if you have three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10 people who want to do something similar, it doesn't even have to be the same. Everyone put your resources together, put all your credit scores together, put all your equity together. Like,
Yeah.
even if somebody has zero, it balances out and you can walk out of the bank with a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. No, I think that's good. That's so cool. And that's a just value in having some of these conversations. And especially with now, as far as a podcast setting where we're kind of thinking about other people viewing this and having a little bit more thought on saying, hey, maybe we should mention this, or maybe I should say this because someone's going to listen to this and maybe they haven't thought about the same stuff. And we can discover stuff right here in conversation. It's really good. I
Yeah,
love what you
yeah.
thought of.
I'm thinking about this children's book. I'm sorry, you got me like now. I'm like laser focused now.
Good, good. Yeah, whatever I can do to help, I think that's a beautiful thing, and it could be a great success.
Well, I mean,
How important
it's
is that?
unfortunately, I know parental alienation isn't like the textbook term, uh, I don't think that's the, I think the consensus is that's not really like the term you want to bring into a courtroom, but for all intents and purposes, for lack of a better term, I know there's more like DSM related terminology. But we'll call it parental alienation for now. It's sadly it's a growing trend. That's one thing I think nobody can argue with. It's probably grown more than we even know because it's highly underreported. Probably beyond highly underreported because most people don't even know it exists. The people who even experience it, right? As someone with a psych degree who's like immersed in that those kind of studies as well, like I understand that when things are reported, there's plenty that's not reported, and when something is fairly new and a growing trend, you're safe to assume it's more. There's more of it than you think.
There's
Um,
also the effort to like suppress it. I think in Canada they're
and
trying
that
to
and that
pass a law that's like stops you or punishes you for even talking about it. And even here you see there's some platforms that are saying that are fully like, don't say this, it's not real, it
well,
doesn't
it's
exist, you know.
stigmatized in the family courts too because
And in the
it's
court settings, another thing, yeah.
yeah. Not everywhere. Obviously, you know, if you do some research, there are some family courtrooms here and there that are like they're understanding and they're seeing it,
Hmm.
and they've even put some parents in jail.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's happening. But I think I say that because like something like a children's book, I think that you know I'm not sure if anybody's done it, but we may see more sort of um, awareness, or, you know, awareness raising efforts like billboards,
Yeah, almost
like
something and you got to be, you know, in a way that maybe that's not attacking mom or dad, whatever
no, it
situation it can
shouldn't.
be, but
No,
like, oh, I
no,
keep
no.
being told in my home that this parent is so evil, but every time I see my dad, he's the nicest person. He's never changed when I've seen him. We keep having the same fun. He's so happy when he sees me, but then I go back to this home and
Yeah,
my aunts and uncles are saying he's evil, and I don't get it. You know, some type of stuff like
yeah. You know something Sam Rizzo did before he passed away. He was so passionate about recovery and helping people. Um, he 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 got his feet wet in the business of medical equipment, and when he was living in a halfway house, and very quickly, him and a couple friends learned the business inside out, invested a little bit of money they were putting away, and very quickly grew the business and became rich. Rizzo was actually a millionaire right before he died, and one of the things he did is because he had so much money to blow, he invested in a hotline, a toll-free hotline for addicts all over the country. And because so one of the reasons he brought me into the business is my understanding of social media, my savvy for writing and marketing and branding. So I helped him grow his brand and reach, oh God, millions of people. He had extremely successful social media channels and ad campaigns and Google campaigns, and because he had to do it for the medical equipment business. So we translated that into the recovery.
is there, can I
You
ask,
know,
like, is there still, did that form into something else? Is it still kind of going on? Maybe for
I
anybody, because there's fathers, maybe they'll see this that are like, you know, that
yeah.
because it leads into
It,
that, right?
Yeah, so really quick, I'll answer that question because it's kind of sad. He died in 2021 tragically. Road rage. A kid pulled out a gun and shot him in broad daylight in Lake Worth Beach. It's you can Google it. He
Mm.
hasn't been sentenced yet, but he's it's gonna be soon. So when he died, unfortunately, a lot of that kind of fell apart. His girlfriend at the time started the Sam Rizzo Foundation to continue helping addicts. She's had to do it largely on her own, and she has a
Wow.
career of her own, and it's a lot of trauma. It was a very sad, very tragic thing. So I can't. I'm not sure if it's still up and running. But
Okay.
I will follow up with you on that
Yeah.
and the rest of the listeners. But you could Google it, Sam Rizzo Foundation, Risso. His name was Samuel Rossetti. And so what I was saying is he had this toll free number, and he had a thing when he started the medical business. He only wanted to hire people in recovery, people who come home from prison, people live in halfway houses, who needed jobs, who took it seriously, who were go getters, who he felt good that like his money was going somewhere to somebody who really needed it and was really going to put it to good use. And so he hired a handful of addicts, recovering addicts to hang out in a really cool office where they answered these phone lines all day long, 5 days a week, and it was completely free for people to call for resources. Anything like, hey, like people were calling from the streets, people were calling, parents were calling for their kids. He was buying people plane tickets to go to detox. He was picking people up at the airport with a pack of cigarettes and a sandwich and driving them to the detox. And later on, call me, I got a job for you. And he followed through like he was for real. So along with, I guess I'm going to just steal all of Rizzo's ideas here with the children's book, and now maybe a toll-free number for alienated people who might
Good,
think or
good,
might
good.
believe
Yeah,
that they're
I'm
being
gonna take a note
alienated.
so I can remind you. I mean, this is
I'm
your
glad one of us
ideas
is.
here. Where did I write this?
How much am I going to owe you for this?
Not me. This is you. This is all you. I will support you
You're doing the
I
labor.
can. But yeah, this is a value of just getting on and talking, and being and not. That's why we don't encourage others. I know that there's times where it's like you don't want to talk to anybody. You're pretty much giving up on everybody, and you're gonna go maybe a little bit of that. Like it's gonna happen, but then also open up and kind of be. Don't pass up the opportunity to build other relationships, new relationships with people. All the time I think like, why am I even spending time on this? Like I could just be living my own life and maybe even be more successful faster in other things that I want to do. But it's so important to not leave anybody behind. Like even with my family court stuff, it's kind of there's definitely things that could stir up that I could go file and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's kind of my child's almost grown. It's kind of like almost over. There's still certainly a road ahead, but to turn back and realize there's other people that need help. The mothers and fathers and kids that need some kind of help. And if we never turn back and say, hey, don't take a left turn right here, I fell off the cliff, then I just think that's irresponsible, to not turn back and kind of say, hey, like here's some ideas, here's some conversation,
Yeah, like don't be
help.
like Bugs Bunny. You should have made a left at Albuquerque.
Yeah. Instead of
I,
just
I had
letting
a
people fall off the cliff, still, I'll keep going,
yeah.
it's help,
I had a rabbit named Albuquerque once.
No.
Can you tell I'm a Gen Xer? Anyway, while you were talking just now, I was kind of hit with a little rush of emotions here because, like, before we hit record, you and I had a bunch of conversations, and um, over the years, it's been like 6 years now since I've had a true relationship with my children, and one of the things that I've struggled with, like, especially when I, was in and out of court all the time, was being public, right? Whether to or not to be public, or how public to be about my situation and my story, how to describe the situation, how to talk about the other people, whether it's, my kid's mother or her family or whatever. And, you know, in the beginning, if we would have had this conversation, it would have sounded very different, right? I would have probably sounded and spoken like a very angry person, and probably should not have. Probably good that I didn't record any podcasts
Yeah, me too.
about this particular subject at the time.
Yeah.
And I'll fully admit I've been guilty of speaking about it in a way that I'm not going to say I regret it. It wasn't wrong. It was how I felt, and I felt that it was right. But we we have to. It's kind of like in relationship science, right? When they like the Gottman Institute talks a lot about repair, and when you have a fight with your significant other, there's a certain amount of time the central nervous system needs to cool down, where both of you are supposed to just shut up and like either like sit on separate sides of the couch, or one of you take a walk or something, because you can't you can't discuss things in a reasonable, rational way until you've calmed down. And I don't remember if it's exactly how long it is that it takes, and I'm sure it depends on the
Yeah, whether it's
person
like
and
so many
diet and
hours or
environment.
days or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
But I bring that up because here we are. Like I'm talking to you on your podcast as American fathers, right? And there's a specific purpose for that, and I wasn't entirely sure, like, if you were going to open up sort of with a line of questioning, sort of like if you had something boilerplate, or if you were going to do like kind of like what we did, just make it more organic, and like and why I say that is because I had to, you know, like any normal person, I think you kind of rehearse a little bit of about what you might say and how you might say it, like for a job interview, or even just a conversation with your significant other when you come back and repair, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I, I like I think like everyone in our situation, we some point we grow and mature enough to say we want to be careful how we talk about it and how we talk about the other person and the other people involved, right?
Mhm.
And it's okay to be angry, right? And it's, I even say it's okay to blame if you're like being truthful and honest. Sometimes you can blame someone or something for whatever it is that's going on, right? It's not always wrong. And it's just a question of the delivery, and you know, how much of the anger how much you let the anger sort of drive your choice of words and your demeanor. And I I really like the way this conversation went, because you know, we don't need to tell the story right up front. We don't need to start from the beginning. We don't need to just be like, you know, everyone knows what, whoever's listening to this podcast, they know why they're listening to it, right?
Yeah.
They may,
No.
and there may not be like that they're an alienated parent or child, but there's something that whatever hashtags you used, whatever topics we've discussed, has brought them here in some way, shape, or form, right? And um, it I just think I think that it's, you know, why I say that. So like, you know, when I was in and out of court, for instance, like that's something that comes up for a lot of parents, not even just alienated parents, just any parents in family court. Like a lot of times you hear about gag orders, and you hear about, you know, what you post on social media, it might come back to bite you in court and whatnot. And so, you know, there wouldn't be anything wrong with any of the angry things I would have said years ago.
Mhm.
But this is a more effective and productive and meaningful way of going about addressing these issues. You know, whether my children are listening to this one day, or anybody's children, or any parents, it's like we don't even need to talk about the fact that we've, whether or not we've been manipulated, lied to, whatever, who blaming. That's all done. That's all. We can't change the past, right?
Yeah.
There's not a damn thing we could do about what just happened 5 minutes ago, let alone 5 years ago. You know, we can only deal with now.
Yeah.
And we already discussed earlier that when you reconnect with your children, parents, or any relationship where you've been disconnected for a long time, you know, you got to focus on what's in front of you.
Yeah.
That person that's in front of you, the person who you are, and why you're coming together, you know, typically, and hopefully you're coming together to repair and to rebuild and to reconnect. And you know, yeah, there's going to be emotions. Yeah, there's going to be anger. Yeah, there's going to be sadness. Yeah, there's going to be resentment. Yeah, there's going to be regrets. But what you don't want is contempt.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the conversation we're having is the kind of conversations that I think that avoid contempt.
I think I'm happy to hear that, because I was just thinking as you were saying that, like, you know, I should be messaging some of my guests afterwards and saying, hey, well, you know, was there anything I could have improved? What did you like or not like about the podcast? Maybe it's a good idea, but even as I'm listening to you say, you know, that's how I felt about natural, you know, organic conversation, even if we never really touch on the hard stories behind it all. You could tell by watching, like both of us have been through things, and any of my guests, and now that I'm looking at some of my guests too, one that I think I just posted before this one, or 2 episodes before this one, we didn't like, he's got a big case that he's like campaigning for like support on, and it's a public case. It's natural. It was Native and Pro Se, Nicholas Garcia. I just talked to him like last Friday. And you know, and we didn't really even talk too much about any details in it, the case. And we talked about like life and being happy or turning bad situations into good ones with a little bit of touching on some of the court experiences. And so some of these talks, I think, will just stay in that area and go. I like the freedom of it. I don't care. Like if I talk to somebody and we don't, you know, I don't think I quite have, and you make a good point. Just like if I'm just opening up, well, what's the worst thing about what you're going through? Or I think I lost him, but he'll probably come on back. What's the worst thing you're going through? And well, I hang on. I think we'll wait for him to hop back in here. Let's see, wait till we get back so I don't, because I want him to respond with, so we can have some feedback off the conversation here. Let me see. See if he comes back in here. Well, hang on, wait a minute.
You got me?
Oh yeah, okay.
I lost you for a minute. You froze.
Yeah, I'm glad. So yeah, I kept it running. I figured you come on back.
All right. Yeah, sorry.
You battery and everything good? You good?
Oh yeah. I don't know. You know what? I think it's rain. It could have been me because it's raining, and sometimes
Okay.
we the connection gets a little. I mean, I'm on internet. I'm indoors, but
Yeah.
even the rain does affect that sometimes.
Yeah, everything's still running here, and
All right, good.
yeah, I was just on the topic of I think it's healthy just to kind of go for an organic conversation and let the talk go where it needs to go. There's not really a set
But this dog's stomach has like a clock attached to it.
yeah, he's right. He's got to get out. What
He knows
what's the
he
plan
knows
with
when
your
it's
time
dinner time.
availability? You want to get him outside or
No. He's just hungry. He can deal.
right. Yeah, and I I I certainly hope you come back multiple times. I'd like to have you on the podcast many times. I think this is a unique podcast where we're talking about, people's lives and following up an unlimited amount of times is healthy and encouraged. We hear some stories we're really into kind of like the facts of the case, and then we want to check back. But others, we're just having a conversation and sharing, the beauty of
It.
the relationship and connecting with each other. And look at the ideas that have already come out of this podcast that you're producing here that are brilliant and, new thoughts that come to mind.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I, I'm gonna say it again, man. I'm like kind of stuck on the whole idea of a children's book, and now this toll-free number maybe, or some kind of a hotline, or something like, it would be just from what I've seen out there already. People like Maddie and some of the other
Like that young boy you're talking about, like maybe a teenager was out there just like taking some initiative and TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, the algorithms are already recognizing, so it's already there. It's already in the infrastructure. It's in the metadata. So to piggyback off of what's already there and to scale it up really would be very easy for things like marketing a children's book and a
Yeah.
hotline and some kind of support groups, because there are support groups for parents. There's a few of them out there. I haven't I don't know, somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but and I know that like I think maybe Maddie might be advocating and offering some kind of support for the children, but I haven't seen as much targeting the children.
Very good, brilliant, brilliant work. And I'm gonna push you to like, we'll just like keep the thought fresh, and maybe it'll turn into a very serious project pretty soon here.
Yeah, well, one idea I learned, gosh, who was it? You know, it might have been Dad's law school. You said you're supposed to have him on a podcast. I forget
I
the
just
guy's
posted
name.
it today. So by the
Oh,
time
you did already.
anybody sees this, that's already going to be available. I just put it public. Like actually, when you messaged me earlier, I almost lost the time. You're like, hey,
Ah,
I know the call's
so
coming up. Yeah, yeah.
So I believe it was his channel was one of the first ones I stumbled across years ago when I first started to study family court and got involved with CPS. We haven't gotten into the particulars of my case. We will at some point. But when I started to really dive, get knee deep, get neck deep and educating myself and learning how to be pro se and all that and how to advocate for myself and others, one of the things that was suggested for parents who are estranged from their children is to leave a digital trail, and to, for instance, like, I bought domain names with my children's names. I haven't built the websites yet, but like I know how to, I'm pretty good with SEO and metadata, and through social media, I've been leaving little drops here and there, things like memes and telling the story. And eventually, I'm going to put these websites together. That I hope that they'll stumble across one day, and it isn't going to be like, hey, you guys were lied to. It's going to be, hey, like I have some of my daughter's artwork from when she was little. I have videos, I have all kinds of pictures, and it's just going to be that, just like a scrapbook of
So
their
many different
childhood.
ways of saying I love you.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt, from the little experience and insight I've gotten into their lives, that like I would say half of their childhood has been virtually erased from their minds and hearts.
Hmm.
And that's got to suck, just thinking about my childhood and some of the things that weren't necessarily erased, but certainly an attempt. I mean, 8 years without my mother. I mean, that's an erasure.
Yeah, yeah, that's not good either.
Yeah.
Not good.
At one point, I was told, your mother might show up and try to kidnap you. I mean, she did once, but I kind of wish she would have succeeded.
Yeah, and it's like it's not that healthy, and not her not being there, but just being told something like that. And I can only, so that, like you said, that's a whole other
Well,
so many things to talk about there.
one thing I know for sure my kids experienced one day was, they were told I had gone to visit the one time they were here, in town visiting family, and I was allowed to go visit them one night, and then I was going to come back the next day, and I wanted to take them shopping for clothes. It was my daughter's birthday. I wanted to take them out for the day and take them to the Jersey Shore and have pizza and bring them back, play video games, and they were told that if I showed up that day, to run upstairs and hide, so that they could call the police. And I'm like,
Gosh, it's so
what do you think that
damaging.
does to preteen children?
Yeah, and that's extremely damaging. And like I said, I was getting into a little bit earlier, just kind of hearing, as you said, things like that change them, even though I think a lot of it, like Maddie, I'm really glad she points out, like deep down, they still love you and they want to
Yeah.
see, but and another thing you got into was, even the alienator parent or the kids themselves being unaware of the behaviors they're going through. I think some of it, and you have a psychological background. I think you mentioned that
Hmm.
some of it seems like this like survival, it's a survival mechanism to like the mothers or fathers that are alienating the kids from the parents, like they are so worried about reputation of showing that they failed or that they did anything wrong in a relationship or a marriage, that they have to now make the other person a villain thrown under the bus.
It's weird because like I'll be the first one to tell you I'm no saint. I've done plenty wrong in my life, including the relationship with my kid's mom. Like there were days, that she called me a POS, and perhaps I deserved it.
Mhm.
just our children don't deserve to be punished for the fact that her and I failed at having a relationship, and you know, I say that, you know, I mean that like wholeheartedly. Like I believe I failed. I believe her and I failed. I'm not going to say, you know, to me it doesn't. I don't know. I think even the experts, even the Gottman Institute, I think might say it really doesn't matter who started it. It matters either how you maintain, how you repair, or how you maintain. And maintaining a relationship doesn't mean you have to be best friends. It doesn't mean you have to sleep in the same bed. But when you make children together, and neither of those parents are, you know, abusing, you know, actually dangerous to those children, all you got to do is just be civil.
Yeah, civil and just, open up for the health of the children and secondarily, the health of the parents. But like imagine that day that you could have had on your daughter's birthday if they hadn't have told them stuff like that. Or I imagine you did not see them that day and did not get to spend that day, do those things.
No, they were in town for the weekend. I got to see them Friday night, and I wasn't told they were going to be in town. It was sprung on me last minute. At the time, I had a relationship still with my brother-in-law, and he was on my side. He didn't really know that, you know, this was only like a year and a half after the
Everything's fresh.
breakup, and he said, "Listen, your kids are at my house. They came for a birthday for the weekend." I said, "Get the hell out of here. You live like 35, 40 minutes from here." He says, "Yeah." He says, "I made sure they know you're coming to visit." Like, so I dropped what I was doing that moment and went to visit. And that was on a Friday night. The birthday party was Saturday. And I had a gig. I had a gig that Saturday morning, actually, at a festival. And my plan was to come. Actually asked them if they wanted to come to the festival, which I'm sure they did, but they were obviously coached not to go anywhere with me that weekend. And
Hmm.
then when I was coming back from the festival, I said that I wanted to take them out shopping for whatever clothes, whatever they needed, whatever. I had some money at the time. I wanted to take them out. They were right near the Jersey Shore. We were going to go hang out on the boardwalk, play some video games, eat some pizza, and I would have dropped them off that night. But they it tried to convince me that they thought I was going to like take them. Honestly, I should have. I hate to say it, but like
But
in
it wasn't even
hindsight,
on your mind then, right?
no. But in hindsight, the law would have been on my side.
Yeah, and so that's one thing
No, it
that
would
came
have.
to
It really
mind.
would have.
Yeah, that was the one thing that came to my mind is like the defensiveness that comes in. So there's the outside of, the reputation or control, but then also the thought of like, okay, like child support's pretty like a pretty clear one where it's like, oh, if I give him any more time, not in your situation, but in general, if I give him any more time, he's going to go file for lower child support and then I could lose custody. So it's like there's no leeway. And it burns the opportunities for like, hey, I'd like to get him some ice cream tonight. Like, oh, I just got paid like twice as much as usual, and I'd like to give him a cool weekend, But then the thought comes in, oh, legally he could like maybe in that position because there wasn't right, like hard rules in place or something. So it could have been legally, you could have kept him
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's
Really,
the
in the
fear.
state of
So
New
now I'm
Jersey.
gonna say no.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because in some states, unmarried fathers have zero rights. Not every state is like that. In New Jersey, because I'm on the birth certificate, legally there would have been nothing the police could do. I mean, I wasn't. It was the furthest thing from my mind. I would have never done anything like that. But in hindsight, yeah, I probably should have.
Yeah.
But and, like it's interesting because when I think about my parents, they were divorced. I think before I was a year old. So the first almost decade of my life, like I said, I had this sort of normal 50-50 experience, right? Two households, two Christmases, two birthday, blah, whatever.
Mhm.
And I have zero up until the custody battle and the thing I told you with the fight and all that. Other than that, that first nearly a decade of my life, I had I had no inkling at all that my mom and my dad had any animosity towards each other. I had no clue that I'd never heard any raising of voices. I never, like, even the times where I didn't go to my dad's house, or maybe he would have come with his wife and my half sister to drop off Christmas presents and stuff. Like, they all came inside. They all sat in the living room. My mom would give them coffee. like if phone calls were just here, talk to your dad, here, talk to your mom. Like there was no, it was just like perfectly normal and peaceful. I mean, granted, it went wrong at some point, but you know, it's possible to do it peacefully.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah, and then
gotta
that just
just
brings
suck it
more
up.
social
You gotta,
pressure out here, you know, that, oh, what if they get this content, you know, or what if they get a video because the phone's right there all the time. Or like, oh, it's going to show, and just, I guess, the same line of thought. They could take this back to court and use it against me. And instead, it's like, man, we have a little bit more humanity, even in divorces, maybe. And at least in your case, where it's like, hey, you know, you said your mom's making coffee and you have a phone call, you know, it wasn't all
we ate
this like
meals
bad
together.
pressure.
I even remember my dad like staying until I fell asleep sometimes. You know, 'cause he would like come in the bedroom and like hang out. I don't know, maybe read me a book or watch TV or something, and then he would leave when I fell asleep.
Mhm.
Like some these things that like,
These things are
and
going
it's funny
to
because when I talk to my mom now at 50 years old, I know she hates my dad's guts, right? I'm 50 years old. That's perfect. I can know that. Like there's nothing wrong with me knowing that. She hates his guts and not for nothing he's an asshole. Excuse my language. I
yeah,
hope
yeah,
that's okay.
yeah.
Okay, right?
Okay.
But like I was like 30 something years old before I knew that. You know what I mean? And like my I guarantee if you were to talk to my kids right now as teenagers, they would have a lot of unfavorable things to say about me that they heard from someone else. And,
Yeah.
you know, that's not to say that their mom is saying anything specifically or deliberately. I'm not acute, you know, I just know that, like, because of the environment they live in and the fact that they themselves at least outwardly express some sort of disdain and have no desire to have a relationship with me, clearly something happened.
Yeah, yeah, that yes,
You
clearly.
know,
Hmm.
something, somebody said or did something.
Yeah, yeah. You know, they put that into the orders a lot too, that oh, you're not allowed to talk bad about the other parent. Well, of course, that's like
My parents never did. The only thing is after, you know, the custody battle, like I said, I was kind of instilled this. It wasn't necessarily my dad who did it. It was sort of the system. DIFUS, CPS in New Jersey, it used to be DIFUS, Division of Youth and Family Services. They got involved, and that's a whole story we could get into another time. But it was more so the system that kind of in the mid '80s. I there was I actually kind of I remember this because like you know families in the '80s watched a lot of primetime television, right? You had dinner, you had the news after school, you had shows like Oprah Winfrey, you had, you know, primetime television, and you had those Saturday specials that would talk about either be an episode about drugs or child abuse or something, some sort of message to children. And child abuse and neglect was a thing. It was like a big thing in the media, you know. And I think that that's kind of like I got kind of swept up in that whole frenzy in the '80s, where what happened to me probably happened to a lot of children that weren't necessarily abused, but the system kind of just went overboard,
mhm.
you know. So it wasn't that my you know any one of the adults in my life, like parents or step parents, were saying anything outwardly overtly like negative about my mom. I think it was just kind of like the overall system I got involved with. You know, it was the media, it was the propaganda, it was the talk.
And it's grown, right? The media and propaganda and all these areas in the negative sense, or even cartoons like family TV shows.
Yeah,
Dad's
well,
like, dad's the idiot. You know, you can disrespect dad. He's, you know, he's just
oh, in
nothing.
that sense,
And it's
yeah,
different than what you were talking about, I think. But that's
yeah, yeah,
just
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
coming to
yeah.
mind as you said that.
Yeah, because see,
Off
what
track.
I experienced, if you watch a lot of the retro stuff from the '80s, it was more like from a place of concern. It was more like stranger danger kind of thing. It was more like don't do drugs. It was more like hanging out with the wrong crowd, gang violence. You know, it was that kind of
Yeah,
thing. It
yeah,
was like,
okay. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It was a different topic there that made me think of, but I see what you're saying.
yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna ask that we wrap this up for today in a couple minutes because
Yeah.
this four-legged monster here, if I don't feed him, he's gonna eat me.
Yeah. That was a good talk today. I think there's so many more
Come
things
here.
for us to talk
Come here.
about on and off the air, and I really appreciate your time being here. Um, let's see, like as far as I want to say, like without uh giving up maybe parts of the story that may remain a little more private until JP, and I don't even know everything, but JP.
Oh, no, no. I mean, feel
um
free to ask questions.
no,
I'm not gonna like
I
hang
said we
hang up
wrap
right
it
now.
up, and I think I got to go too, and I
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah. But I mean, just
sometimes
in
I'm just
general,
spilling water and I got to get out of here, but
yeah, in
we'll
general,
have to
like
have a
moving
sun any
forward,
day.
like when when
But
when we're public, like ask questions. I mean, if for some reason I don't want to answer it, I won't. But
no, and yeah, and I completely respect that. No, but I just what actually where I was going to take it is dads are and men are typically gonna keep to themselves and never ask for any help or anything.
ugh,
And I just want to share since I'm in my position here to speak up a little bit and say, uh, um, JP is someone that I want to encourage others to. When you watch this, I know we didn't get into a lot of everything or stories, and there's going to be a lot more. I think I expect a lot more because JP is so valuable and his story is just like everybody else's
oh gosh,
important.
you're gonna make me blush.
But I just want to say it, JP. I want to encourage others to check the links below, and if there is no links available, because I'm going to talk to him about it maybe after, to reach out to me. JP is somebody that we need to get together a little bit more to try and take care of, maybe offer some resources or donations or anything. And I think JP's gonna be all right, and he's so creative and he's got so much skill. There's a really good future in ahead, but we hit some downtime. We hit some rough spots, and JP
Uh,
kind of in one right now that maybe we'll talk about more later, unless JP wants
yeah,
to share anything else. But I want to encourage others to talk to me, or if I provide a link below directly for JP, I want to encourage others to help, or maybe if we can get some donations together. We need to get him back up on his feet a little bit right now.
I appreciate you saying that. And before we wrap up, I want to say this. Like, you say a lot of times, for particularly for men, like I think probably a lot of women as well, just people in general, grown-ups in general, it's
Mm,
hard to ask for help, right? Like we're raised in this particularly in the Western world to be very like independent, self-sufficient, and I'm learning as like a psychologist and someone who's been studying neuroscience, like it's harmful, it's detrimental. Like we are supposed to, work. Our brains are designed to work together with other human brains, and yes, you should be able to like take care of yourself and others to a great extent, but we need each other,
mhm,
and I had a friend recently because I had to learn to I had to learn humility, and I had to learn to say, okay, you know what? I'm in over my head here. I need help. I had to learn to ask for help. And it took some getting through some shame and some embarrassment to be that guy who started posting like GoFundMe's, or more specifically Give Send Go. And quite literally reaching out to friends in DMs and text messages like, hey man, I'm going through some issue. Like I need some help, and it's a very specific thing. It's not like I'm just like on the streets begging for money for food. It's like among having spent so much of my finances on lawyers and the traveling back and forth to court, and there were some issues with my business and losing some money and having to take so much time because I was like quite literally like almost suicidal at some point, and I had to figure that out,
mhm.
and that cost money. My dog, my dog hit a car. I, I say that he got hit by a car, and I had to, that took money and that took time away from work. I had to nurse him back to
But he's
health.
all right.
Oh, he's made of steel, apparently.
Gosh, yeah.
And I hit a deer and I totaled our van, which I was basically living van life because in anticipation of family court and that whole thing kind of depleting my resources, I decided to downgrade, to kind of downsize my life and make it more affordable. And I enjoy traveling. I have PTSD, so I actually prefer being outdoors. So wasn't living in a van because I was homeless. I was deliberately living a hybrid kind of glamping style van life with solar power and DJ equipment. It was not a sad situation by any means,
Yeah.
but I because I totaled my van, I'm essentially homeless, and I wasn't financially prepared. And I had a friend yesterday message me some very kind words that are hard for a lot of people, where he was like watching me struggling on social media. He's watching me try to do some fundraising. It's hard to give everybody the whole story and let them see that you're not just asking for help, that you're also working and you're also doing what you got to do to make ends meet. Some people see you on social media, they think you're just begging for money. That's not the case. And he says, he's a very good friend of mine. And he said that things in his life got better when he realized that nobody was coming to save him. And 100%, like I learned that a long time ago, right? That doesn't mean that people aren't going to help you. That
Mhm.
means that, like, if you're willing to help yourself, more so people are willing to give you a hand up rather than
Good
a handout.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so I know that when we see people like me on the internet, and we're like, a lot of times we do the eye roll and we judge, and we're like, oh man, like, come on, like, but you know what? We live in a very difficult times economically
We
and
do
and
it.
and
My
psychologically, and
conversations I've had with you already, I could vouch plenty enough to say that this is not a situation where JP is anywhere close to somebody who's just not helping himself or is just begging for money and is going to stay in the same situation no matter what help he gets. Not that
I just
person.
need
I
another
can
van. I need about
that
another.
already.
I'm gonna have most of the money by Monday. I need like another $400.
Uh-huh. For are you and we're t and I know we exactly mentioned it, but give, send, go. So I think I will be able to share that link. You have a link for that, right?
Yeah, I
And
do. Yeah, yeah.
but getting you another van, right? We're gonna
I,
work on
it,
that.
I mean, listen, it'll make me much more productive. I'll be able to earn a living completely on my own without asking anybody for a dime.
Mhm.
And I want to get cracking at all these things, just the things you and I talked about. Like I don't know if it's going to be a children's book, a hotline, or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit in kind of a limbo right now. You know what I mean? I'm not in a place where public transportation is abundant. It's expensive, and I have a service dog, and I have some health issues. I'm
Mhm.
not bitching. I'm not. I'm just telling you like
No
it
way.
is.
So I just wanted to bring that up because it's important. That's a huge part of what these podcasts are for. Most of my guests, I think, are going to be in a position because I've lived and I'll tell you, like I'm still struggling myself right now too. But I've lived in
Listen,
my car multiple times, and we're going to talk to some guys that are fresh into it, and so I'm glad we got to bring that up and get some more clarity. There is a Give, Send, Go link that's going to be pinned at the
and
top.
and I'm always willing to teach dog nutrition. I make my own dog food here.
Wow,
Rowan is one of the most
boy's
physically
got it.
fit and shiny coat dogs you ever seen in your life. Bright
Hey
eyed,
boy,
and he eats raw meat, veggies, and
he
it's
said, "Give me that, Dad."
it doesn't look very appetizing, but he freaking loves it. Sit.
Enjoy. So good. I'm glad we got to cover
Sure.
that. And I'm going to bring it up next time, depending on how fast the situation changes. But give, send, go for just basic help, even in a small way, and also with an actual tangible goal of getting
Yeah.
into another good sized van, a vehicle that's going to be
A Sienna.
proper.
I want to replace my Sienna. I had a 2013 Toyota Sienna.
Okay.
It was a dream. It's not an expensive vehicle. It's not luxurious, but the way I hooked it up, it was like having a nice luxury apartment and a mobile podcasting studio everywhere I went. And me and my dog were happy. And it cost me a lot less money to live life. And it just sometimes, I've seen people with good incomes not prepared for emergencies. It
Yeah.
happens.
Yes. So
Yeah.
that's important. And anybody who's made it through the interview this far, share it, share the interview, hit like, repost, when clips of this eventually are going to be on Instagram sooner than later. I'm behind on all of those on the podcast, but they are certainly showing up. So share it, repost it, save it, comment with some thoughts, say something kind, and check that link, and even share it with someone else who you think it might be interested or able to help.
See, that's the other thing too. You and I've been talking a lot about monetizing, your content, your online activity, your life in general. And a lot of times people think that, the only thing they can do to help you is buy something or send money. No, a lot of times what's even more helpful is the engagement, because that boosts your reach and that gets to people who have the money.
Yes, that's exactly right. It's exactly right. So even just hitting the like and hitting the notification
Comments,
on the
likes,
channel,
shares.
this will grow. And there's so many cool things to learn about JP. There's so many stories I'd love to be able to put on this channel
Well,
and
you too,
watch as
man.
things change over time and see the success stories that are coming. And then the book, we'll bring that up, and I want to get a copy of that's coming out, that's featuring you pretty soon.
It's called House Music
Oh.
101 by Kelly Champion. It's being published by Wahida Clark, who is a New York Times bestselling author. Fun fact, real quick about her: she was incarcerated and cellmates with Martha Stewart, and she was a writer. And Martha Stewart advised her on her first book, so she became very famous writing what they call like hood fiction. Like she's one of I don't know if she's the first or one of the most successful black woman, black owned publishing companies, several New York Times bestsellers. She's publishing my friend Kelly Champion's book. Kelly is a DJ from like the way back in the day. Forgive me. She's, I'm 51. She was a DJ, and in the dance music scene, probably a decade before me, from the Paradise Garage and the Loft days, who were Dave Mancuso and some of these original DJs from the 70s were the first guys to like mix anything remotely like electronic dance music, which was originally disco and funk and R&B, and eventually became house music, and later on techno and EDM. And so I'm in the book alongside a whole bunch of legendary, pioneers in electronic dance music whose names I can't mention because they're running a contest on Instagram that you have to guess who's in the book to win a free
Okay.
copy of the book.
Yeah.
But I guess I gave away that I'm in it. But
Well, tell me
uh,
the name of the book one more time.
House Music 101 by
Okay,
Kelly Champion, and I'll give you the link. I think I already did.
yeah.
Yeah, and the reason I'm in the book is she wanted to highlight someone from the next generation who was influenced by the early pioneers in the dance music circuit, and kind of how that shaped and molded me as a DJ and a fan of the music.
Very good, JP. Thank you for being here today. Anything else you want to say before we shut this one down today?
Tons more. We ain't got time for it today.
Yeah, well done. All right. Until next time, the link's going to be below. I can't wait. JP, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, everybody. And I look forward to many, many more.